everywhere. And so you couldn't really, I had been here before, but there was a lot of this stuff that was hidden. These current places were hidden under these hyacinth mats. And so my whole tournament was, I ended up catching my fish in the back of a backwater, which is completely opposite from what you would think. And we were here in September, it was 100 every day. But what is completely what you think about getting closer to the river when there's no current, but actually the better current that was isolating the fish, I found it in 3 or 4 different backwaters. I ended up staying in one the whole tournament, but the whole deal was finding one of these places that where that water, every time that lock moved, the water moves in and out. Those fish live there all summer. Those fish that I found had probably been there, and I'd done this on the Arkansas River growing up there, but those fish had probably been there for 3 months. That it was almost like every fish in that backwater was in that one place because that water moved. Now it never was moving to the extent where I'm looking down and going, you could see it, but what you could see was the water change. That backwater was clean. The water in it was kind of brownish looking, but all that stuff that was under that hyacinth mat was clear. So I would see that it would seep out and go back. And it seemed like the fish moved like that. So anytime that the lock would move right, and I could see that seam come from under that mat, that's when I caught them. And so the deal was, what I figured is they would move with the water when it would move, because there's a huge backwater through a little cut that was completely hyacinth over. All that water was moving. And so when I figured that deal out, every backwater, I started looking for that. And you'd never find it in the front. It'd always be all the way in the back. And it'd be like it'd be one little place in this huge backwater, and all the fish were right there. And I found that in 2 or 3 places, and it was all because of that. But the whole key was you had to find a place that was dead end, where the water was moving in and out. Another deal is if you find a place that's a pipe, because a lot of these backwaters now, not only here, up and down all these river systems, are all private. Everything that's off the main river is private now. But they'll put a road across them, these backwaters, and there's several on this river like this, but they put a pipe there so the water can flow in and out. They put a road across it. They don't block them off. It would kill the backwater because that water does need to move, to keep the life in the back. But these pipes, those fish will live there for months at a time. They may not be easy to catch, but they will be there the whole time because on all river systems and in the South in general, our water gets so hot that the water quality goes really bad. And what happens, like most of the time, is the fish won't be deep because there's no oxygen. The hotter it gets, all the oxygen layers closer to the top, or a place where you find this moving water. And so all up and down this river system, it's like this. I mean, I'm sure there was a ton of it in this pool too. I didn't spend any time because, like Brock was talking about, I was running away from the crowd. I thought the farther I ran, because I was just fishing the tournament to win. I didn't, I wasn't trying to get points. I just had jackpotted this event. So I had spent the first part of my practice in pool 3, and then I moved up and ended up fishing in pool 4. But the deal is, these places, if you study a map and look, they're everywhere. But again, you just have to think about it like this. When you got current running, like normal river current, you want to look for a place that's the water runs all the way through and they'll all have fishable current in it. But when there's not any current, you want to look for a dead end, because that way, it's the same thing at home. We have tide. So when the tide moves, it moves in and out of a place. A lot of the water around my house is that way, and there's no river system. It's all tidal. And so the only water movement we get is in and out. But the deal is to find where it condenses. Because even though it's moving over, let's say, a large area like this, if this is dead end in the back, the only movement you'll see is right there. And those fish know it's the best water quality. And that's where they'll set up at. And they'll live there for months, because we have months of hot weather. Like we'll get summer, and basically this could even happen as early as June. Last year we had a huge drought, so we didn't have, once it quit raining, I mean, it quit. It quit till just here the last couple of weeks, realistically. But the swamp is full now. We've had enough rain lately. We're back to normal. But the deal is, so realistically, I start looking for these places as soon as it gets hot, and the water stops moving. And it does seem like all these systems now that are controlled, we've had all these major floods, like let's say back 2011 was probably the one that changed the TVA and the Corps of Engineers, how they manage these lakes and rivers all over the whole country. Because we had some floods then, and then, you know, because that 2011 flood was biblical. It was, the Mississippi River was 3 feet, possibly, I think it was 3 foot was a number higher than the 100-year flood mark. Maybe it was 6 foot above the 100-year flood mark. But anyway, so ever since then, it's almost like they're trying to rush the water through all of our fisheries, whether it's the Tennessee, they're holding everything lower. So that those periods of when we get these normal rain current situations where the fishing's so good, it seems like we're getting less and less of that. So it's more and more important now to look for these hidey holes, you know, these places where, and here's the other cool thing about this, you're always dealing with the school of fish. Like these places, I'm not fishing these looking for one. So in the open here, I fished the same 50-yard stretch for the whole tournament, you know. I did get beat by a guy who went over a rock dike in a john boat. I will say that. Uh, Maybe he was legit, maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know. Seemed kind of sketchy to me. Cost me a bunch of money, but I was fishing current. He was fishing where there hadn't been any current in years. So maybe somebody fed his bass back in there. I don't know. Yeah, but it is like, because fishing is so tough in the South when it gets hot, it's just important to find these current places. Another thing around, if like, that happens that same time of the year when these fish are hunting current is undercut banks. They like to be that deep that time of the year under an undercut, because again, it goes, you know, where a place where the current has washed the bank underneath. And typically, how you can find that, even if you can't see it with your eyes, is look for leaning trees. The tree will always lean where it's washed out underneath it. So if you're going down a bank and all the trees are standing, and then you get to a point where a couple of them are leaning like they're about to look like they're about to fall, it's undercut. The bank's washed out underneath. That'll be tell you where that kind of places exist. It's all that stuff, and then once you're like, well, I know another place, and I know another place. And again, the other deal about the undercut is it's undercut because that's where the current hits the most. So if there's any current moving, that's the reason he wants to be there. It's the best of both worlds. He's in the shade. It's late in the summer. The water quality's not good. There's more oxygen shallow than it is deep. So he's in the shade, in a cool place. The current moves. It's going to hit that place. And so and it doesn't matter. All this stuff we're talking about now is anywhere in the United States. California Delta. I mean, anywhere we've been, New York. I found this everywhere. That looks like the Mississippi River there in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Could be at my house because both places look the same. So, but again, it's depending on what part of the country you're in. When you don't have current, you got to look for a place that makes current.